It's been 3 years since State of Decay 2 released, and kudos to the developers Undead Labs because they've shown more dedication than a dung beetle pushing a boulder of elephant crap up Mount Everest. Not that State of Decay 2 was a boulder of elephant crap to begin with, mind you, but it didn't review as well when it first released as it would do now since all of the updates. The third-person sandbox post-apocalyptic zombie survival game already had a solid foundation, but Undead Labs have continuously updated the game, polished it, and added enough features to warrant a new title, State of Decay 2 The Juggernaut Edition, which is available on Steam and Xbox Game Pass. There's something so simplistic yet so addictive to State of Decay 2, with no aspect of the game really being a standout feature, but survival fans will easily find more than one thing to enjoy, and before you know it, State of Decay 2 will have stolen many enjoyable days of your life. One feature that does stand out from most games is that we don't play as one character. We control a community of characters, with the main focus of the game being based around survival, resource management and base building. These characters all have their own personalities, and this really adds freedom for the player, more than simply being forced down a set path that the developers have chosen for us to play out. Now granted, it's not exactly packed with much in the way of narrative lore, but there's a clear difference between characters which can lead to favoritism and choices that I always enjoy having available to me. You can designate a leader and exile characters you don't want around, and you're likely going to end up picking your favourites, whether that's that strict, regimented soldier character or the mouthy gobshite who thinks the world of himself for surviving a supply run, totally neglecting his fellow survivors while forcing them to carry all of his gear.
Before I went out there, I was worried whether I still had it. I'll let you be the judge of that. High five, don't let me hanging down. Oh, God. Oh, jeez. Oh, here he is. Oh, Tina, a bit too much for you? Possibly. Oh, it's your job. Hold me back, because when I'm out there, I am... Oh, and it's like... So, that's up to you, I'm afraid.
Surviving only takes one of the characters to keep the game going, and if one of you dies, you'll instantly take control of the next character. If all of your community is wiped out though, then it's game over, as each character has permadeath. Each character is pre-generated, sharing most abilities, but vitally having some of their own unique abilities and personality traits that can help and sometimes hinder the community. I love this sense of empowerment it gives the player, overseeing and almost playing God to a whole community, instead of investing into one character. Simply playing the game with one of your characters will upgrade their skills with an eventual cap, but before that cap we can reach a skill level where we're given the option to add a real game-changing skill to that character, such as faster reloading, rapid movement when crouched, or faster, more brutal takedown moves, just to name a few. Unfortunately though, the favoritism can lead to absolutely devastating heartbreak when one little mistake can see the life slip away from your favourite fully maxed out heroic zombie obliterating character. There are other smaller human AI controlled communities out there too, which could become long-term friends of your community or even trick you into sticking your head above ground to try and take you out. Now this mixes things up during quests, but predominantly you'll be up against the zombie threat that's constantly evolving as time passes, and you've got infestations appearing in certain spots, and this leads to an increased presence of zombies all round, as well as your community's morale decreasing because of the increasing threat. Dotted around each map are these monstrosities known as plague hearts, which are these stationary masses of disgusting flesh that emit this red mist around the area it hides in, infecting all the regular zombarinos into harder hitting plague zombies. If any of your characters are hit by one of these, a meter appears above the minimap, and once the bar gets full, a timer will start indicating how long you have before the effects of the plague start to affect your character. Having this happen out on a supply run can create intense dilemmas, deciding whether to continue your supply run, fill up your vehicle and rucksack inventory slots, or just play it safe and make sure to get back to your base to administer a vial of plague cure. If you run out of time, you're done for, and you'll become a fully fledged member of the zombie community, as hard as that might be to accept.
Zombie! He's a fucking zombie! I totally fucking got you!
Holy shit!
Oh, you should have seen your fucking face!
The gunplay is pretty snappy and crisp with a massive amount of weapons to choose from, with some having modification slots to add muzzles and silencers, as well as needing maintaining as they wear over time. The zombie variety will force you to change your weapon of choice at a moment's notice too, with screamers that attract zombies in their numbers needing taking down quietly, ferals moving frighteningly quick, best suited to a shotgun slug to the dome, stopping them in their tracks, bloaters that explode and rapidly infect anything caught in its blast, best approached from a distance, and the biggest bastards in the game, the juggernauts that require everything you've got to be thrown at them. The melee combat is a big weak point to the game in my opinion. Now, I'm not expecting a FromSoft level of detail with precise hitboxes and all that, but it feels so loose to swing any weapon, and dodging is far too easy, with the camera during these animations being a bigger threat than the zombies themselves. Stealth is often your best approach, and depending on your difficulty setting, once you've maxed out your stealth ability, it's a pretty generous system and AI that's excusable because, after all, they are zombies. If you play your cards right, you could wipe an entire infestation out without being noticed, so stealth is advised but not necessary. Again, it's great not to be forced into a certain playing style. Driving is the other weak point of the game, and though I appreciate that Undead Labs have added variety to each vehicle, with each feeling different to drive, there are some that just feel rubbish to drive, and it's not because they're difficult, some just don't feel fun. I do appreciate the fact that they tried to alleviate this by adding the option to swing open your car doors while driving, demolishing the infected as you pass by with no regards for your door, but the fun of this only lasts so long, especially when these zombos start to seem like magnets that are actively seeking out my car door. The vehicles all have pros and cons, with some only fitting 2 people in and others having more defense upgrades available, for example, and I really enjoyed this variety, and I especially love the constant threat of taking your eye off the fuel gauge and having your vehicle conk out on you right in the middle of a zombie infested town, or that first time you approach a juggernaut in your vehicle with a follower and you arrogantly think that ramming it will get the job done. The inventory management is a huge aspect of the game, and those wanting to carry 500 kilos of the most arbitrary items you can find Fallout style are shit out of luck. At first I wasn't a fan, I must admit, but the limited inventory space creates the need for a more methodical approach rather than simply heading out into the wild and picking the map clean. Decisions will need to be made as to what items you should leave behind to come back for, and what items have more of an immediate importance and therefore need bringing back to your base. I would like to see the inventory menus themselves improved on, and items made clearer as to what they are, either in State of Decay 3 or maybe in a future update, because they're still not that simple to navigate, and being forced to unload my vehicle manually gets tedious fast. So rather than deciding which poor chump has to unload my vehicle, there has to be a better way to get the job done. Oh! Damn.
Yep.
When it comes to base building, don't expect bespoke designs with precise structure creations, because the maps have set base locations, and within those locations are some predetermined structures as well as empty slots to build structures of your choice. You'll have the obvious ones like beds and an infirmary, and through recruiting certain characters with expertise in a certain field, you can build different structures to build up your community. The structures can have mods applied to them too, smoothing the day-to-day operations of surviving, increasing storage, or simply adding some of the old world comforts of life to improve morale. In addition to bases, each map has a multitude of outposts which, once cleared, act as one of the vital resources needed to expand and keep your community alive. You'll earn a guaranteed daily source from these outposts, which can be a little more dependable than the randomly found resources that you can find while out hunting on a supply run. The world's resources are meds, food, ammo, materials and fuel, and actions like completing quests, taking out certain enemy types, or saving a fellow survivor in need will earn you influence influence, which is effectively the game's currency. Influence points are used to unlock more outposts and bases on the map, or they can be used to buy some much needed items from nearby traders. The game has multiple difficulties and tweaks available to the gameplay to tune the experience to how you want to play, and anything above standard is a genuine challenge. When first released there was only 3 maps and now there's 5, Providence Ridge and Trumbull Valley being the latest 2 maps added, with Trumbull Valley being a map from State of Decay 1 and added as part of the Heartland update, which is a story mode continuing on from the first game. The Juggernaut Edition includes 2 standalone game modes that offer unique experiences from the normal campaign game mode that came with the base game when first launched. Honestly, I still think I prefer the campaign mode, as this has pretty much everything the game has to offer in its entirety, even though most of what I've been playing this time round is the Heartland story mode because it was new to me. For those of you who have never played State of Decay 1 or 2 need not worry about the necessity of playing the first game, because 2 is a substantially better game in my opinion, especially after all the updates, as well as running on Unreal Engine 4, and it basically has the same core mechanics as the first game, minus the odd little thing like barricading windows, but overall it's been vastly improved, as well as including 4-player PvE co-op. In the Heartland story mode, we can play as 2 pairs of characters, both searching for people relating to their backstory, and their search has led them to Trumbull Valley. It's a different and slightly more challenging experience compared to the standard campaign mode version of Trumbull Valley, as the zombies here are all blood-soaked, plague-infected zombarinos. Instead of being able to add multiple bases, we're limited to 1 base, but we can still secure outposts. In standard mode, we can almost bleed a map dry of its resources, meaning your best bet is to move on to a new map and re-establish your community into a new home. Whereas in Heartland we're limited to Trumbull Valley because, as well as the familiar plague hearts from the standard mode, there's a new mysterious plague wall blocking the exit points to the map. They're even blocking certain structures that we need to break through as part of the story. These plague walls have a bloater embedded in them as its nucleus, and the only way to damage is to throw these craftable plague busters at it to lower its fleshy shield. It's an absolute beast though, with 3 health bars and hordes of the infected swarming you as soon as you start unloading on this putrid mass of decaying tissue. The story itself, although it has a more meaningful overarching plot from start to finish compared to the quicker moment-to-moment stories within the campaign mode, it still feels more like an extra long side quest. That might seem a little harsh because Undead Labs have added this mode and it's totally worth experiencing, but you shouldn't hear that there's a story mode and jump in expecting a AAA standard of production value. There's a decent enough plot line with a nice little intro and outro and a varied enough challenge compared to the campaign mode, and the basic core of the game is still at play too, with little tweaks which makes this mode well worth a go if you've grown tired of the campaign mode. Then there's the daybreak mode, which is a horde mode defending a technician against 7 waves of zombies. Now, even if you favour the open world modes over the arena based waves of the infected like I do, there's still incentives to play with rewards that can be carried over into your campaign mode. This can also be played in co-op and again offers another varying challenge compared to other modes, with this really being much more gung-ho aggression, giving players the option to really utilise all the weapons on hand. There's a few other noticeable improvements to the earlier versions of the game that aren't simply just newly added game modes. There's been subtle improvements to the visuals that have been added as part of the February Fields of View update, such as a graphical reworks of the maps, massively increased draw distance, improved texture streaming, so pop-in has been almost eradicated, not entirely but almost, and I always thought that the world felt so barren and dead when I first played, and I don't mean that because the world is literally full of dead geezers.
But this whole place sucks.
I mean the little details like grass swaying, extra clutter and debris, as well as particle effects and pieces of rubbish floating through the air. The performance feels so much more solid too now, and I can't speak to whether this is because the last time I played it was on a 2080, which was still a smooth experience at 1440p, but now it just feels even smoother, sitting well above 100 FPS, and that's on the highest settings at 4K with a 3090, which I know isn't the greatest gauge for most people, but it hopefully gives an indication that these sandboxes still aren't that overly demanding. There's also a new field of view slider, as the update name suggests, and that alleviates some of the camera issues I've had during melee combat, but enclosed spaces are still not perfect. The performance and level of detail should be standard in games of today, so I don't want to get too carried away about them being improved on, but the fact that they have been breathes so much more life into this ever-dying apocalyptic world. I think the dedication from Undead Labs to keep this game as fresh and up to date as they have done is amazing and deserves recognition. Even though they're not exactly a huge outfit and the majority of the team is now working on State of Decay 3, they've still not neglected the massive fan base still playing State of Decay 2, so well done them. I'd love to hear what you guys think of State of Decay 2. Have you been playing from the start and noticed the updates that make a difference, or have you never played and fancy diving in now? Which I totally recommend, by the way. If you've enjoyed the video, help the channel out against this ever-growing battle with the evil YouTube algorithm. Check out some of the other content on the channel as well, and if the channel's got what you like, then consider subscribing, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.